have a Ouija board story time. Now, can you imagine if my eyes were actually this color? I would literally rule the world, but God had other plans. But back to the story. The person who submitted this has been tagged down below. This story actually happened to her mom. So for the sake of the story, we're gonna call her mom Gloria. So when Gloria was a teenager back in the 90s, she was having a sleepover with a bunch of her friends. They were celebrating her friend's birthday. Everything was going well until one of the girls decided to bring out a Ouija board. They played the game for some time but forgot to say goodbye at the end of the session. Now, one of the main reasons why they were even playing the game in the first place was because one of the girls' father had recently passed away and she was trying to connect with him. But what she ended up connecting with was not her father at all. Now, while they were playing the game, weird things started to happen. Like one of the girls felt like somebody was tapping her shoulder, but no one was there. They were hearing strange tapping noises throughout the room. The lights were flickering, but they didn't really think much of it. They decided to put the board away and go to bed. Now, there was a girl that was laying next to Gloria. For the sake of the story, we're gonna call her Monica. The next morning, after the girls woke up, they found Monica in the corner of the room, hugging her legs, rocking back and forth. The rest of the girls are of course worried, so they go up to her and ask her what's wrong. The girl then tells them, "Did you guys not hear me? I was screaming, asking for help. No one came and helped me." She then moved her arms and her arms were covered in scratches in the sets of three, like 3 scratches on each section, and her legs also had scratches. As it turns out, after everyone went to sleep, Monica was dragged out of her bed. Whatever this thing was had come in the room and dragged her out by her legs and was trying to take her away from the rest of the girls. Thankfully, she fought back and did not end up going with wherever this thing went with her, and I'm getting chills even talking about it. But the crazy part is that the room was filled with other girls and no one else heard it. No one else heard her screams, her begging, her pleading. No one heard any of it. They all slept through it.
You want to see something freaky? We'll take a look at some old footage. This is from the Theodore Brill's assisted living community, and it's security footage from back in the 80s. This camera would just kind of generally face this hallway, but one night it caught something very eerie in this particular frame. Before we get into it, I have got to say thank you to you for making my podcast, Creep Time the Podcast, number 18 in the whole country. I'm very grateful. So if you have not listened to Creep Time the Podcast, go click the link in my bio. If you look to the background of this footage, on the right there appears to be an elderly woman just standing there. What really kind of freaked everybody out is that everybody recognized this woman. The staff could tell that this was Blanche Raymond. The problem is, Blanche Raymond died 2 years earlier in 1984. Still, the consensus from the staff is that the footage clearly shows who they recognize to be this woman. Just feasibly no explanation for it. How do we explain this footage?
What they find in the attic is nightmare fuel. It was late and Jason woke up, as he often does, craving a late night snack. He got out of bed and walked down the hall towards the kitchen, making sure to be quiet so he didn't wake his parents. As he rounded the corner, he saw it. A deranged looking man drinking milk straight from the carton. He ran to tell his parents, but when they got there, the man was gone. After searching the house, they decided it had been Jason's wild imagination, but Jason knew otherwise. A couple weeks later, it happened again, except this time the man was looking at Jason, watching him sleep from the air conditioning vent in his ceiling. But once again, his parents chalked it up to a young boy's wild imagination. Weeks went by and the foul odor started coming from Jason's room, and it reeked of death. Jason begged his parents to check the attic for the strange man. The smell had to be his doing. And when they did, what they found was disturbing. The deranged man was dead in the crawl space.
She kept her secret lover hidden in the attic? Dolly Ostrich lived in Wisconsin with her husband Fred, and the marriage was a bit rocky. And one day, Dolly started an affair with a young man who worked at her husband's factory named Otto Sanhuber. At first, they handled the affair in the usual fashion, meeting up at hotels, sneaking around. But this got expensive, so Dolly had another idea. She asked Otto to quit his job and move into her attic. Otto agreed and lived in that attic for nearly 10 years. Coming out only during the day for trysts with Dolly, and at night sitting alone in the dark reading mysteries by candlelight in the attic. Even worse, Fred, the husband, was convinced that he was going crazy because he was hearing footsteps, mysterious sounds, seeing shadows. Obviously, he was hearing Otto, but when he confronted Dolly about this, she said, "You're crazy, go see a doctor." Dolly, the original gaslighter. If you want more on this bizarre story, check out the Avery After Dark podcast, because it gets even crazier from there if you can believe it.
In the early year of 1991, this is the last photo ever taken of Jared Negretti. Jared was a 13-year-old Boy Scout who went hiking with his fellow troops. As they were hiking up this 1,000-foot summit, Jared grew tired and his fellow Boy Scouts told him to wait there and they would be right back for him. However, when they returned, Jared was nowhere to be found. An extensive search turned up signs of Jared, including his footprints, his backpack, but most importantly, his camera. The camera had 12 photos, 11 of them being when he was with his fellow Boy Scouts, but the last photo was when he was by himself. The picture shows an eerie close-up of Jared's face, and this would be the last photo ever taken of him. Police and volunteers have put a collective 45,000 hours into searching for the remains of him, but it's almost like he completely vanished into thin air. It's been 31 years and there's not a single detail that's new. Make sure to like and follow for more videos.
So who or what destroyed Dixie's car? In 2008, Dixie went outside on the patio to check on her cats. The cats were missing. Her husband was outside, he said to come over to the car, and this is what they find. She found pieces ripped out, scratch marks. One of the theories was that it was the lizard man terrorizing the town. Here's some of the pieces that was like ripped out. The sheriff came and took some blood samples, and here's what they found. So according to the University of California, the blood came from a dog. The sheriff and Dixie were still not convinced that this was caused by a dog, maybe a coyote. The official report was that this was caused by a dog, not the lizard man. But what do you guys think?
This town is so haunted they had to permanently close it to the public. This is Dudley Town, Connecticut. Dudley Town, Connecticut is a haunted, abandoned town in Cornwall, Connecticut, and has a creepy history. Visitors who have explored there say that once they enter, it's otherworldly in there. Creepy. First of all, it's reportedly completely silent. You can't hear birds, animals, bugs, nothing. A researcher compared entering the heart of Dudley Town to standing inside a recording studio booth. Another common complaint from visitors is that a lot of the photos they take in Dudley Town won't develop, but as soon as they leave, their cameras will work just fine. Which makes sense, as I had a really hard time finding really any photos of Dudley Town when I was researching. The creepy legend of the town is years ago, the Dudley family fled to the US after one of their family members was taken care of after plotting against King Henry VIII. They settled in Connecticut and the bad luck followed. Residents of Dudley Town began suffering a series of devastating crop failures and mental illness was rampant in the village. There were countless mysterious disappearances within the village and all-around chaos overwhelmed Dudley Town. By the early 1900s, it was completely abandoned. For fans of the Conjuring films based on paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, the two visited Dudley Town and outright declared that it was extremely haunted and controlled by something terrifying. Investigators agreed that Dudley Town is some kind of a portal. But here's where it goes from spooky to downright bizarre. The owners, the Dark Entry Forest Association, closed Dudley Town to the public and don't do anything to dispel the rumors. In fact, they refuse to be interviewed for the most part, and the owners go to great lengths to conceal their identities. On top of that, if you are caught trespassing in Dudley Town, you will be heavily prosecuted. This is so strange to me. We see so many other ghost towns around the world, and usually they keep these places open for tourism. You know, profit off the history and the spookiness. But for some reason, this association wants to keep people out of Dudley Town altogether. A paranormal researcher said there's some kind of secret that they are keeping there, and they want people to stay out. What are your thoughts? This has been requested a couple times. Has anyone ever been? Or are there any towns by you that you find to be really creepy?
Let's talk about controversial horror movie, Possession. I'm gonna advise a slight trigger warning because I'm gonna show you one of my favorite scenes from this movie. Now, I watched the movie because it went viral on TikTok, and I see why. This movie gets crazy, and you need to watch it to see, okay? But I'll describe what happens. Possession is a 1981 horror film from Polish writer and director Andrzej Żuławski. Now, the film was banned in the UK and released in the US, but with 40 minutes cut from its original screen time.
Aux États-Unis, le film a été acheté d'une manière assez pirate par un imbécile qui l'a collé en double ticket avec un autre film d'horreur, et pour le coller en double ticket, il en a coupé la moitié. Donc ce fut une espèce d'escroquerie horrible et vulgaire, une grande brutalité.
Now, in the movie, we follow married couple Anna and Mark. Now, Anna wants a divorce, and Mark wants to know why, but she won't tell him why, and as he tries to figure out why, things get really crazy. Really, deeply, disturbingly crazy, okay? I'm talking very graphic and disturbing unaliving scenes, really disgusting imagery, and a tentacle scene, which I'm not gonna describe what happens because, TikTok. It was so much that the UK literally named this as one of the top video nasties. Basically, a film that is too obscene. So yeah, however, like I said, a lot of those scenes were cut. It was 10 years later that the film would acquire cult status because the uncut version of the film was being more widely watched. That's when people were saying yeah, this is horrifyingly cool to watch. Yeah. One of the scenes that made me feel that way is this scene right here. I'm gonna show you. Now that scene goes on for another uncomfortable minute. Now if you want to experience this film, the whole uncut version is on Shudder right now. I highly recommend it, however, be prepared for some weird scenes, okay? Okay.
1 Minute Scary Stories. Episode 2. My daughter woke me around 11:50 p.m. last night. My wife and I had picked her up from her friend Sally's birthday party, brought her home, and put her to bed. My wife went into the bedroom to read while I fell asleep watching the game. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging my shirt sleeve. "Guess how old I'm going to be next month?" "I don't know, beauty," I said as I slipped on my glasses. "How old?" She smiled and held up her fingers. "It is 7:30 a.m. now." My wife and I have been up with her for almost 8 hours. She still refuses to tell us where she got the fingers.
I dove into the deep end, 'cause I thought I could swim, but we break up every weekend. Was it gonna be like that? Oh, I just wanted you so bad. Playing with my mind, was that your intention? 'Cause I'm missing you. 'Cause I'm missing you.
I don't wanna talk about you. You don't wanna talk about